Hi, Peter King with the MMQB here with your Twitter mailbag. You ask questions via Twitter, I'm going to answer them. Here in the offices of the MMQB this week, high above Manhattan, and let's get right to your questions. The first is from @Jim Vial. What's the most likely endgame you see for the Deflategate fiasco? Well, Jim, I think that one of the things that I see happening is Tom Brady, when he goes through his appeals process with the National Football League, I think he's going to attempt, with his legal representation, to get his suspension either wiped out or reduced. And I think the only way that that can happen is if basically the league makes a deal with him to say, look, if you take 2 games and all the rest of the penalties stay intact, we'd be willing to do that. I'm not saying that the league would be willing to do that, but that's the only way I see the league right now lessening the Tom Brady suspension. Next, let's go to @Timothy R. Pugh. I always wanted to know, where does all the money that the NFL collects in fines go, and who decides? Well, the NFL each season has 3 major charities that it contributes its fine money to. One of them I know is the Vince Lombardi Cancer Research Center. Other charitable agencies, I think, come and go as the years go on. But I do know that all of the fine money represents, they clearly are able to donate in the millions every year. And I know the partnership with the Vince Lombardi Cancer Center has always meant a lot to the National Football League, so that has been a continuum. Let's go to @Walred1976. Is the loss of Jim Harbaugh that big a drop-off for San Francisco? Wes, we'll see, because I think one of the things we don't really know yet is, everybody has basically said within the 49ers, oh, we're really going to miss Jim Harbaugh. Well, a lot of times, some of the feelings about a coach have been percolating beneath the surface. Not everybody loved Jim Harbaugh. And so I think now we're going to see, once they get to training camp, some guys play better. Does some people feel more free? Conversely, is it going to be more difficult for, when they have some struggles, when they have a difficult time? Jim Tomsula has never had to put the pedal to the metal with a group of NFL players. He's had his own little bailiwick, the defensive line. And we'll see if he can be the kind of motivator and the kind of scene setter that Jim Harbaugh has been. I think they're going to miss Jim Harbaugh. @JesseReed78. Peter, why hasn't there been more big media coverage regarding the Seahawks' failure to properly investigate Frank Clark? Well, for those of you who don't know about Frank Clark, he was the second-round draft choice of the Seattle Seahawks. He's a defensive end from Michigan. He was kicked off his college team last fall, apparently for his involvement in what was investigated at the time to be a domestic violence incident in a hotel in the Midwest. And in the intervening time, the Seahawks drafted him and said, we've investigated this and we're satisfied that Frank Clark was not guilty of domestic violence. Then several witnesses have come forward saying that, oh, yes, he was. He did strike his girlfriend in a hotel. There were several ear witnesses and people who saw the aftermath of it. And I think one of the things that's happened, Jesse, is that because of the tremendous coverage about the whole deflated football story in New England, the Seattle story has been pretty much on the back burner. But I do think that, at the latest by training camp, the Seahawks are going to be confronted with a lot of questions about why they chose Frank Clark and whether they truly believe that he's not guilty of any domestic violence. Finally, from @CCQBN. Why are so many writers down on the Carolina Panthers? Everyone except them in the NFC South is in transition. Well, I'll just give you my 2 cents worth on this. I think there's a lot of there are a lot of people who are still wondering, is Cam Newton the quarterback to take the Panthers to that next level? Do they have enough of a pass rush now without Greg Hardy? Do they have enough offensive weapons? Are they strong enough at running back when you know that Ron Rivera wants to run the football a good 45 to 50% of every game? There's still, even though if you totally believe in Cam Newton and you really think that Cam Newton is going to win a Super Bowl in Carolina, that's great. But you still have the questions about the receiver position, about the running backs. who is going to rush the passer. And the secondary has had some holes. So I think the Panthers have a lot in common with the rest of the NFC South, and that is they've got holes. And that's it for this week's Twitter mailbag. For the MMQB, I'm Peter King.